is Alfred Antonelli, and I'm going to be doing a series on hunting whitetails. I'm in Pennsylvania, so it's going to be more catered towards my general area, but I'm sure it'll apply to multiple states. So to give you a little background, I just got into deer hunting a couple of years ago, and it was a bit of a struggle at first, you know, especially when you're going through all of the information you see out there on the internet, and there's a whole wealth of knowledge, but you really have to go through and figure out what applies to you specifically. So that being said, you know, it's kind of intimidating when you see all these guys out in the Midwest shooting 150-inch plus deer, and you're just trying to get into the sport. And realistically, that's not going to happen in Pennsylvania. You know, there's certain exceptions, but that's not the norm for our area. You know, and the other difference is we have a ton of hunting pressure in Pennsylvania, and it's something that I wasn't prepared for going into it, and I feel that I've focused on the wrong stuff starting out, and so I'm here today trying to get beginners headed in the right direction. Okay, so the first part of the series is going to be going over the gear. This is going to be specifically catered towards archery hunters. I truly believe if you are waiting until rifle season, you are missing out on all of the really good deer action and your opportunity to kill your target buck, or just deer in general, before other people have gotten in the woods. They've killed deer, they've put a ton of pressure on them. So if you're not out archery hunting, you're already a step behind. And that's nothing against rifle hunters. It's just the truth nowadays. And if you look at Pennsylvania's numbers, since they've allowed crossbows in 2017, I believe it was, the numbers for deer killed during archery season has gone up to about a third, and it continues going up every single year. So, like I said, you got to be archery hunting. So, first step to that, obviously, you need a bow. As a beginner, I would highly recommend you start with a crossbow. And I know I'm going to get some hate for that. Everybody loves the compounds, and compound hunters always want to be like, oh well, hunting with a crossbow is not real archery hunting, blah blah blah. Save yourself some of the hassle. Get an entry-level crossbow. I'm not saying you got to go out and spend $1,500 on a top-of-the-line crossbow, because I wouldn't agree with that either. But start out with a crossbow, kill a couple deer with that, and get it under your belt, because using the compound is going to implement several new elements that make it more difficult to kill a deer. Okay. And so if you have never killed a deer before, just rock the crossbow, dude. No one's going to judge you for it. Or people will, but who cares? We're all adults. All right. So next step to that is it's going to bring us to camouflage. Do not go out and buy all of the new Sitka gear, because it's totally unnecessary. And I'm not saying they don't make good products. I'm saying for a beginner, you just don't need it. So deer are looking for three things primarily, right? They are going to see movement, they are going to smell you, or they are going to hear you. Okay, so if you're after a big buck, they need one of those elements in order to just say, nope, I'm out of here. If you're hunting does, a lot of times you can get away with two of those elements before they decide to peace out. And a lot of times they'll stomp and blow at you. That's a whole other thing. But don't go out and spend a ton of money on camo, because the reality is Walmart camo does it just fine. Your grandparents killed deer wearing flannel and jeans. You know, it's just not necessary. If you want to and you want to look the part, like, that's fine, go ahead. If you got the money to blow, I would not recommend it though. Some cheap Walmart camo is really all you need, and especially if you're going to be hunting the whole season, you're going to want to invest some of that money into cold weather gear, and just, you don't want to spend a ton of money on one set of clothing and only have it for early season or whatever the case is. So my recommendation is go cheap on the clothing, because it's just not as important as people stress it is. So obviously if you're archery hunting, don't wing it. Get a rangefinder. It's about $60 over at Walmart, and it works great. It factors in elevation and all that good stuff to give you a distance. For $60, I've had it for 2 years now. It's solid. I would highly recommend it. And I'll put links to everything in the description. Your next thing is going to be your wind detecting spray. Okay, so I mean it's pretty simple. Give it a shake. You're finding out where the wind's going. It's nothing crazy, but it's crucial when you're deer hunting to know which direction the wind is blowing and how you can use that to adjust your setups. Okay, if the deer smells you, you probably won't see that deer, especially a buck. You are not going to see that deer. And there will be tons of people who will say, oh, I smoke in my tree stand and I see deer 10 minutes later. The wind's probably not going in their direction, even though they think that. Or they're accustomed to being around people. But a big mountain buck in Pennsylvania is not going to come in if they smell you. Which does bring us to our next point. You need a way to get up in a tree, whether it's a climber, whether it's a permanent tree stand, or whether it's a saddle. If you are hunting public land like I do, you're probably going to want to invest in a saddle. I'll show you that right here. I have an Arrow Hunter. They are no longer in business, so you probably won't be able to buy one of these unless you go on Facebook and find it on Marketplace or something. And the way this works is I'm pretty much just using a climbing stick and a rappel rope to get up the tree. Like I said, there's a whole multitude of different methods that you can employ to have success, but as a beginner, you are going to be able to get away with a lot more movement up in a tree than you will at ground level. So, and I know people are going to disagree with me on that. They're going to be like, oh, well, you just need to make ground blinds, all this stuff. I don't have an issue with that. But I mean, on public land, I think you're going to be hard pressed. Like, you can't set up anything permanent, right? So it adds a whole nother level of complexity to everything you're doing. So continuing on with gear, you need a solid backpack that's going to hold all of your stuff. If you're on public land, once again, you are going to be putting some miles on your feet, because one of the biggest challenges you're going to find is just getting away from other hunters. There are plenty of deer within 50 yards of the road. You can do a sit there, and there's nothing wrong with that. However, when you go out on the first day, they're going to be just lined up with cars alongside the road, and there's going to be people everywhere. You want to try and get away from that, so that way they're not ruining your hunts. And that's probably one of the biggest factors of hunting deer on public land is working around the other hunters that you're going to encounter. And most of them are very respectful. I haven't encountered anybody who's just rude. However, other people don't know. So we'll get into that later. I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent. But let's continue on. One of the next things you're going to need is a solid knife. Obviously, the point of hunting is to harvest an animal. Well, you need to have a way to gut it once you harvest it. So this is a cheaper Amazon knife. However, they make everything with good quality steel. I have gutted, I don't know, 4 or 5 deer with this, and it's still razor sharp. It'll take hairs off my arm. So I will put a link to this in the description, so you can go out. It was like $20. It's solid. So lastly, but probably, you know, just as important as your bow, you're going to need some sort of mapping system. I personally use Onyx, but you need a way to break down the area that you're hunting. You need to be able to drop pins. It's great for if you are leaving trail cameras somewhere. You can take a picture of it and you can put a pin and you just know exactly where it was. You absolutely need it, and there's so many available. There's a bunch of free options, so don't feel like you have to go out and spend money on that. But you definitely need some sort of mapping system, and it's also a safety hazard, right? When I go out, I make sure to always send my pin of where I'm hunting to a friend, a wife, whatever the case may be. That way they know where I'm at, so if I do not return, they already know where to go look for me. And crazy stuff happens in the woods. Last year alone, I had 3 trees come down within 50 yards of me. You know, one of them could have easily hit me. I could have been stuck up in a tree. You never know. So definitely get some sort of mapping system. Brings us to our next point. Trail cameras are a great resource. Not essential, but they're a great resource. Primarily, I like to use them to see when there's deer in an area, right? So when you go out into the woods, there's going to be tons of sign all over the place. You're going to see rubs, you're going to see droppings, just tons of sign, and then you need to be able to break down, well, what time are these deer here, because they might be 2 o'clock in the morning, you know, and that happens all the time. So it gives me a time as to when a deer's in a certain area, and then if you have the video set, you can also see where these deer are coming from. So just huge advantage having trail cameras. They're not very expensive. The most expensive part is probably going to be the batteries, right? If you choose to go with the cell camera, I will put the link down in the description, same as the rest of them, and go from there. I have the I'm not sure which one I have, Wild Games Innovations or something of that nature. Cell camera, they've been pretty good to me, so I'll put the link in the description. Alright guys, so in conclusion, this is all the gear that I believe you need to get started with archery hunting. In the next video, we will get more into the scouting aspect of it. I will go over some onX with you, and we'll go from there. Thanks for watching.